welcome back to AM Live. When we're on the break, I was interrogating my panelists more than the police to know this JG and what they've had, who this JG could be and who this AK could be, who is demanding 2.7 million in estimated total monthly expenditure in a child support fight. And I was telling them my salary falls somewhere between that of the nanny and the budget for clothes. So these figures are just boggling my mind. All right, I did mention that I had seen this 1.2 billion story before, and it was a Business Daily. And let me see, this was just yesterday. Kerry given 1.2 billion shillings to hire spies in hunt for tax cheats. Interesting choice of word there, spies. But essentially, the new staff are to pursue tax evaders and ensure the imposition of the new levies and collection from thereof. Okay, let's take a look at tulimalizana na Taifa Leo. Raila ataka Ruto aombe msamaha, adai amewasababisha mafadhaiko kwa mawazo kwa kuongeza ushuru. Ashtuka wanaume kupigania mkewe. Afisa wa polisi alirejea nyumbani kwa likizo ghafla akawafumania. Okay, that one also looks like Moti. That is page 5. Pretty much. Oh, this is an interesting cartoon here. Is cartoon the right word? Editorial cartoon or just? Okay. Is this us stand over and up being shaken, and so that everything in your pockets can just fall out. This, I imagine, belongs to the Kenya Revenue Authority. Okay. The Standard, Raila, why we must reject finance bill. Opposition chief Raila Odinga wants the president to withdraw the finance bill, saying its implementation will create an economic recession, and calls on all Kenyans to, quote, fiercely resist the Treasury's new tax measures. The bill is economic sabotage. If President Ruto insists on this bill, this country will go into full recession. This bill requires and must get fierce resistance. Raila Odinga. And also on the front page, 24 billion shillings, too little, too late for schools. Even though the release of capitation funds was seen as a huge relief to schools battling serious cash crunch after a long wait, stakeholders decried the amount and inordinate delays. By the numbers, 16.9 million students in secondary, junior secondary and primary schools. 24 billion shillings is the amount released by Treasury this week for education. 28 billion shillings is what the CS Ezekiel Mashugu had promised. 4 billion shillings is the difference. 18 billion shillings is the last disbursement done in January to clear 2022 debts. Okay, fate of CIS Odwol now in Senate's hands. That is also on the front page of the Standard at the very top here. And this one, I imagine Zainab Ismail will get into more detail next week. Ruto's fresh blow to media on advertising, a baptism of fire for new CBK boss. Let's take a look at the Star, front page of the Star. Winners and losers in Ruto's maiden budget. MPs front policy changes that will affect media, students in private universities, Education Ministry. Jobless teachers, youths eyeing police jobs, farmers are some of the victors. Raila warns Kenya Kwanza against adding more pain to Kenyans. And the image on the front page there is of the Boys II Men concert. I see a reference to End of the Road. Boys II Men, Sauti Sol, all set to jazz up city. More details on the front page. There, I see they write here, Boys II Men elated on arrival ahead of Stanbic Yetu Festival. Looking at this and remembering that the VVIP ticket was 30,000 shillings, and looking at these demands for child support, naona ni mimi peke yangu napambana na hali ya. Anyway, so last comment on this, and then we can get into the question of is affordable housing, in your view, the answer to the unemployment crisis? Marvin Lukalu, who is on the digital desk this morning, naomba unieke hiyo swali, and then we can get the views of our fellow Kenyans. Gents, what do you make of these demands? I'll start with you, Joseph. And you can also weigh in on the borrowing issue, because I told you I had promised you occasion to respond to that.
I start with the borrowing issue. And I have to say this, the problem with this government is not even the headline that they are borrowing. The issue is the lies. Because when these people took over the government, they told the people that they are not going to borrow. And even now, they insist that they have not been borrowing anything. That the reason the cost of living is going up is because they have not borrowed anything. Contrary, they have even overborrowed. Because this week we had a conversation in social media where people were asking, where is money? Because people cannot see where the money is going. People are calculating like this government has borrowed externally over maybe 600 billion. They have collected taxes over maybe 2 trillion. That was coming to 2.4. That's how people are calculating. But people are saying, where is the money? Because even the civil servants are not being paid. Only to realize even domestically, the governor, the CBK governor.
Which civil servants have not been paid? I know there was a time there was a delay.
The delay, I'm talking of those delays.
Okay.
The civil servants are getting those delays. Only to realize even the CBK governor is warning of these borrowings domestically that we don't even know. So the issue about it is not borrowing. They will still borrow, but let them come clear to the Kenyans that they are borrowing and they should not keep demonizing the previous regime that they were doing their projects with borrowing. This government will borrow even more. But the problem is this. Most of the people who supported this regime, they don't read maybe the Business Daily. They will not know about it. So when these people go to the mashinani, they will tell them how they have not been borrowing, how they have been doing things, but they borrow and the money goes to the wrong priorities. That's why there is no money in the economy. And there is no project being undertaken, even if they are over borrowing. Yeah. Okay.
I know the advice, I'll be putting you on the spot a little bit, because there's, you know, we are looking just at the highlights of the counter proposals by Azimio leader Raila Odinga. In your view, is it enough? Will it work to curb wastage and seal corruption, given already their constraints on borrowing? Even if the government were to decide to go that route, because as Joseph said, they're saying we are relying not on borrowing but on our own taxes. Even if they were to take the alternate view and say, okay, now we will borrow to finance the deficit, we'll borrow more to finance the deficit, will it fix the problem, do you think?
I think, first of all, Olive, what I would want us to appreciate is the fact that we are now having a sensible discussion as a country. Because we are having a discussion where the opposition is giving an alternative view, where the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, is giving what would be an alternative and saying, this is the finance bill that we have, but this is what would have worked better. Instead of what we have always seen previously, where it is about demonizing government things wholesomely, which does not move the country in any direction. So first of all, the fact that the opposition has an alternative is already good enough. And the fact that we are now discussing the content of the finance bill is much, much better. Because, of course, the timing does not come out so well, because I wish these proposals were able to come in, because we have had this finance bill for some time now. And now we are moving towards the tail end, and that's when the proposals are coming. You want to really doubt the justification that now these proposals can be implemented. But what I would want to appreciate is the reality that now this is a better discussion altogether for us to have. And when you look at what the former Prime Minister proposes, some of the things I completely agree with them, because, for instance, things like sealing the corruption loopholes. We have been in this country when the former head of state told us that we are losing 2 billion. And therefore, that essentially means that we have some budget items in this finance bill that are worth just about 5 days of our corruption. Because if 5 days amounts to 10 billion, then that is almost 15 parastatals that can be run, because our parastatals are run on a budget of about roughly between 250 to 450 million. So sealing the corruption loopholes is something that this government must be able to do, and with a lot of intention. Okay, but something like that would take time, would it not? Advice Mundalo, because even the civil society is saying, let us reclaim assets that have previously been, what's the word?
pilfered from the Kenyan people. But these are things which will take time. We have demands now. We need 28 billion shillings for capitation. We need 20 billion shillings to pay off NHIF. We need, what is it called, money for Inua Jamii. The demands on the money, even for civil servants pay, as was referenced by Joseph, is now, is it feasible? Is it feasible now? Eurobond is maturing. It's not going to wait.
That is true, Olive. But you see, sealing corruption loopholes doesn't require time. It just requires one crackdown. Once the government has goodwill to stamp out corruption, it will end on the same day that the president talks about it. Just about the goodwill, because it's not a process. Not like there is a procurement process that you need to go through for you to seal corruption loopholes. So that is just something that requires the goodwill of the president and the government. And once that is done, it's okay. And when you look at the other issues of the finance bill, I'm also not very new with, the opposition is only highlighting what is negative in the finance bill, or what they deem negative in the finance bill, because it is prudent for us to look at, for us to have a sensible conversation, we must look at both sides of the coin. We cannot just stick to one side of the divide, because there are things that the opposition is not also talking about. They're not talking about what the finance bill proposes on zero rating on grains, for example, which is very beneficial to the common Kenyan. The opposition is not talking about reduction on the tax refunds that is going to make it easy for even people to do business, because this has been a bit of a hurdle. The opposition is not talking about the tax that is now there on imported goods, especially on manufacturing, which is now going to make it better for the locals, because once imported stuff becomes expensive, local production becomes more competitive. It becomes now easier for our local traders, the people making furniture on Ngong Road and Thika Road to even become better. So it's important for us to have this conversation at a balance and not necessarily just be able to throw the towel together with the bathwater. So right. I agree that there are proposals by former Prime Minister Raila Odinga that really make sense and that should really be considered in a way, because when you talk about sealing corruption loopholes, it is honestly our corruption is eating more into our budget than our development. So those are things that we are supposed to look about.
You talked about the tax on imported material, raw material, and all of that.
Yes.
I will look at that. There's a statement that was released by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers yesterday. We'll take a look at what in particular they have issue with. But the president has conceded, Dennis, that we need to seal these corruption loopholes. He has said, should we raise, and now that is a topic of conversation, should we raise these monies for housing, this 3%, although Kwame Wino is a screenshot somewhere that he called it a slash fund. Should we raise these monies? He will take personal responsibility for their use, because he admitted that there is a trust deficit. So he has considered that he has taken action, at least where sugar is concerned. Did you look at a story on sugar today? There's a story on sugar. I'll touch on it. No, we did. I read a story on sugar right at the start of the news. But he's taken action on KEMSA. So he has considered that we need to seal corruption loopholes. But Dennis, do we have the luxury, and I'll ask the same question I asked of Mundalo, do we have the luxury of time? Our debt is weighing heavily on us as we speak. Our borrowing capacity is limited, as we've seen, given the exiting CBK governor's statement. Where does that leave us? We have to raise the money somehow to finance the budget. And speaking of, I'll look at some of the increases and decreases. Winners and losers.
I totally agree. We need money to finance the government. The government has to operate. And for the government to operate, we need money. So the question here, let's begin even away from the corruption first. You heard the members of Kenya Kwanza mentioning that not even a comma, if you hear the majority leader and the majority whip saying that not even a comma will be removed from that finance bill, it tells you something. If you look at the president harassing and intimidating members of parliament, that this bill has to pass. You listen to the Deputy President, Gachagua, also reiterating the same. So it leaves much to be questioned, because Article 10 of the Constitution says the court pronounced itself on the Article 10, and through public participation, So what is the essence of then MCC, rather the different sectors coming and giving their opinions, people signing memorandums over 1,300? You know, what is the essence of public participation if the same government is telling us that government has never lost? So is it a competition between the government and the opposition, or is it about the interest of the public good? You know, right now as we speak, the Committee of Finance and Planning are meeting in Naivasha, and they've invited the Treasury. You know, so my concern here is there is separation of powers between judiciary, legislature, and the executive. If the president wants to be the member of parliament, let him resign and be a member of parliament again. If deputy president wants to be a member of parliament, let them be members of parliament. The constitution states clearly the roles of members of parliament. And as such, that is why this bill has to be interrogated and telling us that this has to pass. And no, that's not right. But yes, we need money. There are the elements of this bill, we're not saying in totality. So the question here is, should the members of parliament reject the bill in totality? Or should we amend parts of it and reject others? Because, for example, my brother has mentioned that there is good elements of the bill. Now, I want to ask you a question. At the backdrop of, look at how the economy is as we speak. There was removal of subsidies on commodities. And the government is telling us that subsidies was removed. They want to take the subsidies to production, focus rather on production rather than consumption. Remember, the reason why the subsidies were introduced was because of the tough economic times as a result of the corona. And all of a sudden, the subsidies have been removed, and the food commodities, or rather whatever that was removed, now the basic commodities are being taxed. So you can imagine how the economy is very tough and difficult out there for the common Mwananchi. If you can buy a loaf of bread, 400 grams at 70 shillings, just as an example. So how many of us, even as we speak here on this panel, how many people here buy furniture on a daily basis? You buy furniture perhaps once in your life or twice when you want to replace. Now, look at, there is the other one where 16% of fuel VAT, it has been removed from 8% to 16%. That is a double taxation. Now, we are talking about aviation industry and helicopters. Removing, let me ask you, the government was talking about hustlers, and now we are seeing the removal of taxation on aircrafts and aviation industry. Who is this supposed to benefit? Is this the hustler or just the people who have money? You know, now look at advance tax, where vehicles that transport goods, you know, they used to pay 20,000 per year. Right now, they're going to pay 60,000 per year. Now, the ripple effect here is that, look, you can imagine the fuel is already high. The advance tax is already here. Now, we are being told that, you know, now that mentioning about this housing thing and what have you on the housing levy and reducing the cost of importation and what have you, you know, once all this is done, you can imagine what will happen even transporting the construction materials. It's already high. So listening to my brother, what is his name, who was on Citizen TV the other day.
Kwame Owino?
Kwame Owino. Kwame Owino is not an Azimio apologist. He's an economist and he is an expert in his field. And listening to him give his views on that housing levy thing. The statistics, the Kenyan Bureau of Statistics said that we have over 14 million households in this country. 14 million households. And now the president is saying that we are going to create 250,000 jobs annually. What is the magic here? If 14 million households has not created any meaningful jobs in the country, so what is the magic they want to use?
You're quoting what Kwame had to say. And I've seen advice, shoot you a look of, we also want to say something. But Joseph, so that we can come now family into housing fund, and I will come back to you, Dennis, on that, so that we are on farm territory there. Joseph, is Maandamano therefore inevitable?
I think the next phase of Maandamano, I think it is people who will call for former Prime Minister Amolo Odinga to lead them. Because even, I think last week, we had so many people demonstrating here in town because of the same thing. Because this government is putting Kenyans in a very awkward position. They don't have a plan, but now they are taking us in seekers to discuss what they think they should do. In fact, to a point, at a certain point, they even asked Kenyans if they have a plan on how they should be led, to send maybe to them and to exactly how things should be done. Because,
who is that?
There was a guy who said that it was Treasury. It was Treasury who had said that if the Kenyans had some views on how these taxes should be done,
so that is standard procedure.
Yes, they should be done. So people came in power. People who had said they have a very well laid out plan on how things will happen. But month after month, the plan keeps changing. In fact, their plan is like a virus. It's mutating. It's mutating. We started with hustlers, Mama Mboga, unga itakuwa 70. That one was done away with. We came to 15 billion trees per year. We'll be doing, I think, 400 million a day for the youth. That was done with. Salary versus, in fact, that thing of the salaries versus unsalaried, it's a very dangerous divisive politics. When a deputy president will stand in front of the nation and tell, hata nyinyi watu wa media, unaweza piga kelele, because you will be charged for those taxes. It's a very divisive. When the leaders of a nation goes and tell people, nyinyi watu jobless, the reason you don't have houses, it's because there are some employed people who are refusing to be deducted the 3%. It's a very divisive coming from the head of state and the presidency. So what I'm telling you is that these people don't have exactly where they want to take this nation. In fact, telling people that this housing thing will be a narrative changer, it will not. We were taken through a hustler fund thing. A hustler fund, right now, the last time I heard the Ministry of Cooperative was saying that we have drained over maybe 25 billion on that hustler fund thing. It was meant to empower the youth. You and myself knows we have not seen any change. Nothing has been done on the bottom people to see the investments coming up, and 25 billion has just gone like that.
Maybe it will take a study.
No, it will not take a study
to
because
establish just what effect it has
will
had
not take
on
the study
economy.
because the money the people are getting were handouts. It was 500 to 1,000. 500 to 1,000. Which meaningful business, Olive, can you do with?
I've hosted people who say you go, you buy a watermelon, you cut it up.
Those are ideal situations.
You return the investments.
500 right now in Kenya, it is 2 kilograms of sugar.
Yes, 2 kg.
2 kgs of sugar. That's 500 right now in Kenya. So 500 in Kenya, you're telling me you go where you go where. Even the fare is not even enough.
But now so you can borrow with your chama. It's what, 20,000 to $1 million, was it?
In fact, the chairman's people should be prepared that the next finance bill we are having, they will even be taxed. Yes. The chairmans, the women in the villages, they will be taxed. So they'll know where to hide for these people. So what I was saying is that this government is taking Kenyans in circles. In circles. And let me tell you, if you go to the mashinani, people are so tired of this government. They cannot see the clear direction that they told people, we are taking you to Canaan. We are just going round in Sinai. Mount Sinai. And we might go for the next, I don't know how many years. So that's why I'm telling Kenyans, the issue of Maandamano, it is inevitable. Okay. We are doing it as soon as possible.
Because you're saying you have no confidence in the National Assembly.
National Assembly, you can see even the case of Sabina Chege. She's advancing the ideologies for Kenya Kwanza. All
right. Actually, now that you have mentioned her, Advice, I promised you occasion to comment on that, and we can even change the tag now because now we are in that territory of our topic. Yes, Advice Mudala, what did you make of the events yesterday in Parliament? And my question with regard to that is this. Is the Speaker playing favorites? And I asked this before. Previously, a precedent has been set where the Parliament has taken a stand against the judiciary, quote, interfering in their mandate, right? overextending their arm into their business. Number two, the speaker called up during the National Prayer Breakfast, Sabina Chege, to make remarks. What did you make of that? And what do you make of his statements with regard to the finance bill when he told the president, do not fear to act and do not act in fear? Is this speaker impartial, in your view? And given that his previous rulings, because Azimio is now accusing him of why did you not take this action before said court ruling was issued, he had given time for them to submit a name. I believe that was the complication the first time round. Now he's saying, oh, the courts have suspended the courts have tied my hands. Mischief?
I don't know from which angle or which, because you have asked me about 4
I know I've asked it, right? But you're an intelligent young man.
I think the first thing we must be able to really appreciate is the fact that Speaker Moses Wetangula has quite a fair understanding of the legal processes. Because one, he's a lawyer. Two, Speaker Moses Wetangula has been in Parliament for quite some time. So he has quite a good understanding of the standing orders of the House. Now, what happened yesterday in the House about Honorable Sabina Chege was very unfortunate, especially in the manner with which our members of Parliament behaved, because it is an honorable House, and that's why we tag the word Mheshimiwa to the name of everyone who is on that, on that House, and therefore behaving in a dishonorable manner was very unfortunate, to the extent of attempting to even physically assault another member. Was not very well called for. It is not a house of heckling, so the behavior was very unfortunate, and that is not the precedence that we should actually have on our Parliament. What the Speaker did is that the Speaker just stood by what is by the dictates of the law. The first time that that Azimio wanted to remove Honorable Sabina Chege, the Speaker was in line with the standing orders when the Speaker said there is no provision for removal. You can only replace. And therefore the problem was not the Speaker. The problem was the letter that Azimio had written. And the process has gone on, and it has been in full glare of the camera because it has been on national TV. We have been able to see the Speaker try to abide strictly by the law. And yesterday the Speaker said that I cannot do anything because there is what is it? There is a court order. There is nothing we expect much from the Speaker when there is a court order. We cannot be able to push the Speaker to disregard our institutions, because the independence of our institutions is something we should guard jealously, because that is what makes us a country. And when we have all subscribed that the judiciary will be able to take precedence, it will guide us on matters of litigation, it will guide us on matters of law. And when the Speaker says that I am guided here, we don't expect much. The Speaker can only act in accordance with the law, and that's why nobody is following any reasonable process in this. Nobody is going to court. Nobody is saying the Speaker was acting unconstitutionally.
Yet
nobody is saying that. The only thing that is being said about is the political mantra and a lot of noise around the issue and a lot of politicking about the issue. Of course, there will be politicking, there will be bickering, but at the end of the day, we must stick by the rule of law. And up to where we are today, there is nothing wrong that the Speaker has done.
So you're saying there's no, in your view, there's no issue to do with separation of powers here?
There is an issue of separation of powers because the legislature runs independently, the judiciary runs independently together with the executive. But that does not mean they operate in mutual exclusion. They must be able, at the end of the day, to operate seamlessly. It is not like, well, now because they're independent institutions, you have a president of the legislature and they should disregard everything that he says. Remember, at the end of the day, despite this independence of the institutions, we are guided by law. What the Speaker is doing is as guided by law, as guided by the Constitution, because that is what the judiciary has pronounced itself about. When it comes to matters like the Speaker calling Honorable Sabina Chege to speak in a prayer meeting, I don't see what is wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with... Remember, this was a reconciliation meeting. Anybody, including you, Olive, can speak in a prayer breakfast.
But I was not called to speak. Sabina Chege was.
You did not attend. And
I was. You don't watch AM Live?
I didn't see you attending. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is there is no problem with any... The Speaker anyone, not necessarily even being invited by the Speaker, but anybody can be invited to speak at a prayer breakfast. Even Mbanda can be invited to speak or to pray in a prayer breakfast. My friend Chege can also be invited to pray or to speak or to serve tea in the prayer breakfast. So there is nothing out of the ordinary. There is nothing out of the ordinary about it. No, I can assure if Mbanda is invited to pray during the prayer breakfast, he will, because I understand him to be a fairly religious man.
All right, Dennis, wrap this one up for us.
I am actually very religious. I am. But attending the prayer breakfast, this is the 20th, I think, since the inception. Yes. And they hide in the banner of reconciliation, and yet they do the opposite. So there's nothing to reconcile the country. Let them not pass the financial bill. You know, I wanted to, you know, my brother's mentioned something here, very funny. You know, it is funny how Mundalo is speaking candidly with a lot of energy on this issue, simply because Sabina Chege is quote-unquote his party leader. Yeah, that is your party leader, my brother.
As is his right.
Sabina Chege is the acting party leader of
the
party. It's not necessarily,
that is quote-unquote your party.
That is the party leader of the Jubilee Party, the acting party leader.
It's my turn. Yeah? Mundalo, me and you, we both know what has transpired. And I know you're conscious, you might speak on air, but your conscience does not even allow you. You are not even comfortable, even when you speak about it. I can easily look at you, you know, you're just misleading the public. The issue here is, the doctrine of separation of power is very clear. The executive should not meddle with judiciary vis-a-vis the legislature. And he said that the speaker is a lawyer, which is true. He's a lawyer. But it's obviously the speaker is impartial. Rather, he's not impartial. He's been taking sides with the government. Just like you said, anybody could have prayed. Sifuna could have prayed. Any other person could have prayed. But why Sabina Chege? My concern here really is, you know, especially now that, you know, there's a lot of heat. This is just to dissuade us from, you know, this finance bill. Me and you, we both know that Sabina Chege, by constitution, she's not legally, like I mentioned earlier, Political Parties Act, Section 14, Part D and E is very clear. If you are deemed to be supporting the other side, you are supposed to resign. And she should just do a diligent duty and just resign. You know, how do you want to be the minority leader, a minority whip of a faction that you do not even subscribe to? Who does she want to whip?
There's something I hear about constantly, and it's parliamentary party, and I'll need one of you to explain that to me. But I want to move us along. I want to take a break and then come back now with, is this affordable housing scheme the answer to unemployment? Dennis?
Yes.
20 seconds.
A quarter second. You know, nobody, funny enough, do you know nobody has seen this court order? The court order that Speaker Wetangula was mentioning yesterday, nobody has seen the court order. Who was served with the court order?
He has seen it.
Remember, he has seen it, but members of Azimio has not seen it. Who has seen it? Remember, there was a time in this country where court orders were just being issued right, left, and center, to a point where judiciary came with certain codes, you know, so that you can verify if this is really an authentic.
You said he's a lawyer, so I would imagine he can tell the difference.
Believe me, these people, the way I see them, they can come up with a court order that does not even exist.
Okay, we'll try and get our hands on said court order. But on the issue of unemployment, na mambo ya kujenga manyumba, dear Kenya Kwanza blowhards, this is Kwame Owino. I think he came under immense pressure from KOT members who are, KOT community members who are sympathetic to the administration. He says, I know my interview today blew away your bubble about terrible and unpopular housing ideas. Calling me an Azimio supporter is not even half as smelly as your housing levy / fund. Just grow up. It seems aliskumwa sana. Charles Hinga responded, and this is the Principal Secretary, Housing. Kwame, you can do better than that. It's difficult to engage when it's not on ideas, but on insults and cheap shots. Enrich the process. Let's engage on the plan. Let's see what can work and what cannot work. Then propose alternatives, but not on taking cheap shots. We come back with this conversation on the other side of this break.
Dad, what made you decide to become a doctor?
It's because my father needed one. And you, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be happy like you.
Life insured is love assured.
Let's get straight to it. Ready for whatever. We gon' ride. Line them up. Let's go toe to toe. Tell them pick a side. Put in work. We don't play no games. Watch it running high. Savage mode. We gon' keep it G. Yeah, you know the vibe. When it's meal time, who gon' tell my dogs we can't eat? Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm a threat.
Get the Ballin' Twister box for only $7.50. NBA, KFC, balling all day.
Ready to showcase your football talent? The wait is over. Safaricom Chapa Dimba is back. Bigger, bolder, and better. Safaricom is on the hunt for the next big footballing sensation. Register your team. Visit chapadimba.safaricom.co.ke and you too can be the next football star. Cheza kama wewe.
No bunga fagi pendene lace the mystery. No bunga ti browse on flick the mystery. No bunga me gonna next week the mystery.
Only on the Trend. 10 p.m. The Trend in association with Spotify.
Babe, have you heard Dance Holding by Uncle Jing Jong?
But have you heard
Have you heard? Have you heard?
Spotify has over 100 million songs.
Imagine uko na flight, halafu umepita kilo na 500 grams. Maze nilijua hiyo motura itaniharibia safari. Maze.
Job loss, especially if you've not done anything wrong, should not be shameful. You've not done anything wrong. Sini life.
We talked about a process they took before they let you go. They know wanasemanga story ya ati vile wase ufutwa job kwa mjengo. Wewe usikam kesho. Does the process help?
It does help.
2 out of 3 Kenyan parents felt that they don't spend enough quality time with their kids. You can help change this by giving a generous voice to Storytime. Visit our library of homegrown audio stories at cadbury.africa and make Storytime sweeter.
In your paper this week, why Ruto is playing West Russia ping pong. Ballooning debt, a weakening currency, and high food prices push the Kenyan leader to open doors the world's greatest powers. Kigali roots for recognition of M23 in Congo talks. AU woo civilian groups in Sudan ceasefire. Plus our opinion leaders. Africa's kill the gays laws may be good for economic recovery. Charles Onyango Obo. Free secondary education is not best policy for poor African states. Rob Grujtas, Uganda's expiration pandemic, expired courses, drunks, brains, Joaquim Buembo, magazine. Divine allure of Namugongo Shrines keeps beckoning visitors. For this and more stories, get your copy of the East African.
Cascadia Apartments at Two Rivers Development in Nairobi with a Madaraka offer till 30th June 2023. Price start from 9.2 million. Call us today on 0742 342 722 or text Cascadia to 22365.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. I'm live. So we're looking at this housing proposal and whether it is, in your view, Marvin, ni kama hukunisikia, sijui nikupigie, naomba uniweke on tweet so that the viewers can also contribute to this conversation. What are your thoughts? Is it possible that it could provide, is it the answer to the unemployment crisis that we have as a country? Sijui nimpigie ni kama hanisikii juu, he didn't post. Should I? Let me just make sure he has received the message. Nimuulize kama salamu zimefika. Let's see if he picks. Let's see if he picks. Oh dear. All right. Even as I try to... Okay. Marvin, hi. Good morning.
Morning.
Ujumbe umefika?
Bado.
Okay. Please post for me a question, right? Your thoughts that the affordable housing program will fix the unemployment crisis?
Your thoughts
on affordable housing?
Do you think the affordable housing will fix the
unemployment challenge, yes. Or crisis, or yeah.
So.
Thank you. So Jumbe, he had not had. All right, looking at the budgetary plan, Kenya Kwanza's budgetary plan, increases State House 7.3 billion shillings. Office of Prime CS, of course, it's an increase because it was previously not there. 547.5 million shillings. Internal Security and National Administration 1.52 billion shillings. ASAL and Regional Development 2.1 billion shillings. Ministry of Defense 1.7 billion shillings. State Department of Higher Education and Research 10.83 billion shillings. State Department for Basic Education 12.34 billion shillings. State Department of Roads 4.23 billion shillings. State Department for Shipping, Maritime Affairs 24.88 billion shillings. State Department for Urban Development 3 billion. Irrigation 2.2 billion. So this is I'm assuming how much they've gone up by. State Department for Water and Sanitation 1.99 billion shillings. State Department for Energy 1.23 billion shillings. And Blue Economy 1.18 billion shillings, Public Service Commission 1 billion shillings, Teacher Service Commission 1 billion shillings, State Department for Investment Promotion 4.65, Deductions Office of the President 6.68 billion shillings. But what they've done is they've separated the Office of the President and that of State House. We are clear on that one?
Oh yeah.
All right, State Department for Performance and Delivery Management, 497.5 million shillings less. State Department for Economic Planning, 1 billion shillings less. State Department for MSME Development, 204 million shillings less. And State Department for Sports, 40 million shillings less. All right, on this question of now this housing levy, a lot of contention. The experts, even Billo Kerr, I saw a couple of tweets, him taking issue with some of the issues in this finance bill. I can't recall if he spoke specifically to the housing levy, but wait, who spoke last?
I'm to go next.
Oh, you are to go next. Yeah. Okay, but we have, it was,
no, you're the one who spoke last.
Okay. I'm sorry. Today I'm half asleep. I'm sorry. I can't recall. Okay, Dennis, you go first. On this issue, we've seen even leaders from the Azimio camp, such as, and the Deputy President actually made reference to Esther Passaris during the prayer breakfast, that there is indeed a problem with informal settlements, that these people need to live in dignity. So you can answer that one first before you address unemployment.
Yeah, be that as it may, it is actually very true that, you know, people need decent housing. It's a dignified thing to do. But the government has not been given the authority to advise people on how they live their life. Look at how the allocation of this budget has been done. I think about 41 billion has been allocated to the National Assembly. And then 29 billion has been allocated for the housing project as a starting point. And then judiciary, I think, is about 23 billion. Now, there is much to be discussed in that alone. National Assembly, there are about less than 400 people. And allocating 41 billion shillings is just for globe-trotting and moving around, you know, and these allowances here and there and per diems and what have you. And then you want to tell us that he's very concerned about this housing project, affordable housing program. Allocating 29 billion, look at the priority. 29 billion, and you want to create jobs for 250,000 people per year, 29 billion. Whereas you want to give members of parliament 41 billion to do what exactly with that money for? Judiciary, 23 billion. Now, put that aside. Devolution has not worked. Not just yet. The money that is supposed to be allocated for devolution, still it's being done in phases, and there's just a lot that is messed up with the counties. Remember, Olive, that water has been devolved. Look at how much the Ministry of Water is being given. For what exactly? To do what? We have, I don't know, almost over 14 parastatals with duplicated roles. What are we doing? Because water has been devolved. Look at health. Health is such a big crisis in this country. Look at the amount of money that is being allocated for the Ministry of Health. And you can imagine they just focus in Nairobi here. How many, I think it's the National Hospital, it's just Kenyatta Hospital, referral, they're just about 4. And allocating over 10, I don't know, over 10 billion, I don't know how much has been allocated for the Ministry of Health. There is no priority. They're not putting their priorities right. They're not getting their policies right, you know? So my concern is, in as much as, you know, President William Ruto, he's a master of deceit. He's very good with his words. He's mastered an art of, you know, just lying and looking at you in the eye, and you're going to do nothing about it. He talked about the issue of gases being lowered, I don't know, to 300 shillings. Tell me, the other day he was saying that he did not say anything close to that, and what he meant was the gas cylinder. Tell me anybody in this country who does not own a gas cylinder. Who doesn't own a gas cylinder? Yeah? So, and look at also the track record. It's always promise after promise, but none has always come to fruition. We live in a country where corruption is the biggest cancer that we have in this country. And when the president talks about fighting corruption, look at what happened in Kemsa. Only few people were named, and then also those names that were named, they came out and said they have nothing to do with that, and the people that were involved have been protected and are still employed. So this issue of corruption is such a joke. The government is formed by people that has court issues, court cases around allegations of corruptions. I'm saying allegations, including the deputy president himself. So the issue of corruption is a menace. And to discuss this issue in totality and to ensure that the austerity measures, you know, you cannot talk about austerity measures to the people, but still within the government, the government is too large. Why do we have the CSS? The PSS are all over. And such a duplication, we have so many parastatals. We have ministries that were devolved, but they're still functioning fully. There's just, the government is not getting the priority right.
All right.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Joseph?
I have to say this, Olive, that housing is a requirement for any nation, for the social justice and fairness for its people. And country, worldwide, all the countries are doing that. They're trying to see how the low-income earners can own a house. However, the problem with this government, for the last 9 months, Kenyans have been taken in circles of empty talks from the president himself. Yeah. So, Kenyans are asking, if all the empty talks and you have been telling us, you have not fulfilled even one, how can we trust you in this?
Is that fair, Joseph?
It's very fair because let me explain that. Some months ago, youths asked, where is Kazim Tani? The president himself said that the youth of this country are better off planting trees than unblocking sewages. And in fact, he gave a very awkward figure. He said that in the next 10 years, Kenya, he's planning that Kenya will plant 15 billion trees. Yeah. If you do the simple calculation of 15 billion trees a day, each day for the 10 years, Kenya should be planting 4 million trees daily. And he said that the youths are going to do that job. The rain season is gone. Now we are going to another season. Not even one youth has been employed to plant those trees. And now you want to tell me that we are sitting somewhere now waiting for another promise that has come, a new promise that has come of housing that the youth will be employed. I want to tell President this, that those construction jobs he's telling the youth, they are even more, in fact, those jobs, they strip off the dignity of youth more than what he was doing in 80s of selling chicken. I can tell you that because after Form 4, I used to do mjengo. A youth of this nation at this era carrying stones and bags of cement in a construction site, a person maybe who have a diploma in something or has gone to school, that is stripping those youth the dignity. In other countries, the machines are doing this work. And you will not go there and tell me that the youth will be employed as clerks. How many clerks can be employed in a construction site? The youth will not be employed as engineers. Let's be frank and sincere to the youths we are telling about these things. If it is the supply of material, there will be no multiplier effect because these people, they usually give tenders and contractors to one individual, maybe who funded their campaign. So not any youth will be given away maybe to supply ballast or stones or anything. It will be one single person, a contractor, who will do all these jobs. I'm saying this because, Olive, let's take a person maybe called Njoroge, who lives in Mathare slums. Njoroge in Mathare slums, listen to the news and here's President saying that he is going to make sure that the jobless have houses. And the people who are making sure the jobless don't have houses are the people who are employed. They don't want to be deducted the 3% so that he can sort them hustlers. Then the Njoroge will be very happy to hear that from a president. Then a PS comes, PS Hinga. And again, Njoroge hears the news from the PS Hinga saying that the rules for you to own a house, number one rule is that you must be among the people who contributed. So where is Njoroge coming? Njoroge did not contribute, but Njoroge has been told, Njoroge, you will own a house. The people who are contributing the 3% have been assured by the government that for them contributing, they will be the first to own these houses. So they are lying to these people who are jobless that they will own a house and they will not own. Again, those houses are not for free. Njoroge lives in a house, maybe he pays 2,000. Even electricity itself, maybe Njoroge does some illegal connectivity and even water. He cannot afford. Then tell Njoroge that he's going to pay maybe 1 million to own a house. That is not fair. This is a person who is struggling with basic needs. Maybe even to afford a meal a day is a problem for Njoroge. You know, a person who could not lower the cost of maize flour from 200 to 70, a simple promise. Now he's telling Njoroge he will build for him a house worth 1.5 million shillings. You know, sometimes, it is morally wrong to take the bottom people as people you can just throw a word and something. And lastly, Olive, this issue of houses has been mutating. We started with, we are creating affordable housing for the common mwananchi. It mutated to the other day in Madaraka, 1st June. The president did not even talk like we are creating houses now for the mwananchi. In fact, he was very specific. It was creation now of jobs. I think he said 5 million jobs. We are no longer in the housing thing that people will get houses. We are now in creation of jobs. And I have told you, somebody explained to me clearly how those bottom people or the common mwananchi will be able to get jobs in those houses. I have told you there is none. Because right now, even in your estate, there are a lot of mjengo that is happening. And the mjengo, in fact, those jobs are not sustainable. When the flat is done, those people, they go home, they spend the retro they had, and that is done. In the country, we want a person who has a plan, a sustainable plan of making this country sustainable and the employment sustainable. See, at flat ikiisha, those youths now they become again jobless.
All right. What do you say to that advice? And the reason I ask you that is this debate. It's a healthy debate, right? Yes. But wanasemanga kizuri cha juza, kibaya cha jitembeza. Naona ile Lucas con Camilla. Anyway, the fact that the government has to try so hard, and who is it who said, Alfred Omenya said, you know, this is like a warthog that is being flogged to declare it is a lion, you know. And it is a warthog. What, in your view, at least where employment is concerned, will this fix, is what the president saying making sense to you?
I think first of all, Olive, one of the tragedies, or I don't know whether it's a tragedy, but it is a problem that this government will continue to struggle to fix, is that it came in office on the backs of young people, the hustlers and the mamamboga. And therefore, the expectations of the public are way ahead of their time. The expectations are just too much. But it is also, I don't think it is something I would advocate for, that we are supposed to push a perception of pessimism and hopelessness in young people about government. Because governments exist to serve all of us, and they will be there for 5 years. So for us to paint government in such a picture that makes it almost so opaque is not very necessary. Remember, there are things, and I have seen a lot of propaganda spilling on this morning show, because we can't, for instance, say that the president has not been able to deliver anything he promised. Because I do not speak for the president, but to be fair on government and the president, at least even on the day one that the president was sworn in, he delivered for the judiciary. He delivered for the office of the inspector general. He delivered for some people. Like, we have promises that, so it is callous to sit and say that they have delivered on nothing. We have the Hustler Fund. It might not have been implemented, in my view, in how it was promised, but at least there was something. So painting it as though government is useless and doing nothing is neither here nor there. We must first of all be able to trust the possibility that government can actually be able to deliver. Otherwise, when we've come from the place where we believe it's impossible, then we are simply selling a narrative that will make our young people more hopeless, more pessimistic, and is not going to be helpful. Now, on the issue of the job creation because of housing, yes, I agree that there will be job creation, because and I want to tell my brother Chege that Mjengo does not necessarily mean people going to lift cement. Yeah, people out there studying construction in our universities, and this is an opportunity that is going to be there. We have, for these constructions to be done, there is electric work that has to be done. So there is a lot of things that will be done. So there will be, there is a possibility, actually there is a reality that for as long as there will be housing, then there will be jobs. My problem is that the president also needs to understand that not all the youth have specialized in areas around construction. So there must be other avenues as well that are going to create jobs for other young people, because we have the young people who are in communication, we have young people who are in diplomacy, we have young people who are in international relations. So we cannot be able to say that the only place where we are going to fix the unemployment problem in Kenya is through housing. Housing is going to fix some problem. There will be some people who will be employed, but again, not all of them. So there must be a way in which you can be able to balance the act and be able to also provide these jobs to the other Kenyans. And if you allow me to just also talk about something on the finance bill, because I didn't have opportunity to respond to that. Mm-hmm. First of all, I want us to have this realization and appreciation that I think this is one finance bill that has been most discussed in the Republic of Kenya since independence. That means the government has really been able to provide opportunity for public participation that has been fairly good. We have seen so many people comment on matters of this finance bill, and we have seen the conversation go on and on. We saw the president even drop the tax on content creators. So it has really been a good conversation, and also Kenyans have also been able to take the lead, because normally, you know, Kenyans do not really take the lead in conversations about such things. But for once, we have that. Now, about the president saying and requesting that the finance bill passes in parliament, I saw my colleagues talk about it being so bad, but the opposition leader has also said it should not pass. So we cannot be able to say that when the president says the bill should pass in parliament, that is wrong and that is dictatorship. But when Prime Minister Raila Odinga says the bill should not pass, that is not wrong, that is not dictatorship. So there must be a balance. This finance bill is by the Kenya Kwanza administration. The Kenya Kwanza administration is being chaperoned by President William Ruto. We cannot expect them to come up with a finance bill, then the president says it should not pass. He obviously will say, this finance bill should pass. He will put up his case, and he has done that severally. I saw him do it during Madaraka Day. He has called journalists to put up his case for this bill. So he is also negotiating for this. So we cannot be able to say the president should just sit and wait and wait for his the finance bill not to pass. I think there must be a balance there. We can't say the opposition leader is right to say it should not pass. That is not dictatorship. But the president is wrong to say it should pass. So there really needs to be a balance there. And my brother Mbanda said that how many people buy furniture. The conversation in the finance bill is not about the people buying furniture. It's about the people selling the furniture. It's about providing opportunity for those ones selling the furniture, not those ones buying the furniture. So when you argue that you only buy furniture once in a year, but the person selling sells the furniture every day. So if you're able to provide opportunity for them in that regard, then it makes them sense for them in that regard. So I think that is more or less what I would want to say on that. And I think we should, the president, for me, I loved it when the president said that we should hold him personally responsible. And I think because we have never seen the future, we've never been here where President William Ruto was. So if he has said, let him be held personally responsible, let us give him that. Let us allow. Let us not be so negative in discussing matters of nation building. Because we're already saying that he will not deliver. We're already saying that we cannot hold him personally responsible because it's not going to be possible. Yes, there has been ills in the past, but let us have a benefit of doubt that the president has said, hold me personally responsible. Otherwise, if we are not going to believe in the government, we are not going to believe in the president, we are believing none of the policies of the government, then where do we want to go? Where do we want to live? Because we have a government and it's here for 5 years. So we must critique it. We must tell the government that this is wrong and this is right and this is where we want to be. But we cannot tell our people and tell the public that government is wrong in its entirety and we should forget about them. Forget about them and go where? This government must serve all of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Oscar Nkambili, good morning. Thank you for making the effort to be here with us this morning. You will only get to respond to a question. And okay, so I'm looking at some of the responses to this housing proposal, right? Alfred Omenya says, GOK went to hunt for a lion, it caught a warthog. Instead, it has been caning the warthog to confess that it is a lion. The poor warthog is almost dead. Looking at Ekuru Okot, he says it is now abundantly clear that even after more than 10 years in government and with lieutenants spread all over the government, parliament and judiciary parastatals, etc., there was never a plan, especially for the downtrodden Mamamboga Boda wheelbarrow folks. Kwame Wino has been quoted endlessly on this subject, but this is one of his tweets, folks. And speaking of Njoroge, if someone is trying to convince you that you would receive a how to pronounce that one?
Mansion.
Okay, here. Or flat in Nairobi for 2,400 shillings per month, then he's betting on you being dull-witted. And if you believe him, then you are. Who is the dull-witted one?
First and foremost, I came in when Joe was speaking very seriously about the topic of housing. And I think I was left shocked because I've sat with Joe in a room discussing how this thing can be done before. I have sat with Dennis in one room discussing how the housing plan can be executed. So it turns out today that the housing plan is so bad that nobody should listen to it. Now, the fact that it's William Ruto who is executing this thing doesn't make it a bad thing entirely. What we need to do is to discuss how this can be done successfully. While we could also want to play politics and play to our side, it's important that we also look at the future of the country. Now, we must also understand that the president is only acting based on his promises. I don't think there's anything he's done that is out of what he promised. The president promised, and I actually remember when he was mentioning in several of their rallies, that President Uhuru drifted from the Big Four agenda and went into BBI and the handshake. And that had them lose focus on the most material, most important things, including the housing plan, which they actually believed was going to give jobs to the young people of Kenya. So also, having said that, there is a concern that I think needs to be shared. Kenya generally has gone into opposition mode and activist mode. Nobody wants to listen to the other side For us, it's about oppose it first because of what we think is going to be the result, then see the result before we can support it. When in real sense it's supposed to be, support it, give it the positive energy, and then should it fail, hold these people to accountability. That is what happens in most civilized, places.
But Ascon,
but in Kenya,
if I can see that is a whole that I am working towards, should I not then stop?
I'm going right there. Now, the concern is, or I want to give you a small example. When COVID-19 came in Kenya, and the government was shouting, there was scientific data, there was evidence all over that COVID-19 was already wreaking havoc in other places. But you remember that Kenya's on social media did not believe this. Actually, they bullied the first victims of COVID-19 into depression. That's what we're having in Kenya right now. Everybody wants to oppose just because it's fashionable to oppose. Now, let us look at the merits of this thing. And I'll be very cautious to comment on what Professor Omenya says because he's quite an authority in that aspect. But I wonder why he would call this a waterwork because all world over, evidence show that whenever housing has been done, there are employment opportunities that come with it in numerous numbers. And the responsibility of the government, first and foremost, is to secure property, but also to create jobs and employment. And that is the background against which William Ruto campaigned. How is he going to achieve this? I have heard William Ruto speak about, imparting technical skills to our people. This was equally shared in the Azimio manifesto. Therefore, there was a consensus between both political sides that there was need to impart technical skills to the people or to the young people. Where are these technical skills going to be used? They're going to be used in such projects, infrastructural projects and construction projects as the ones that are happening right now, are the ones that the government is proposing. Now, we're also talking about reducing the number of guys who are admitted to the university in courses that we feel are not very impactful in our economy. And we have always talked about STEM courses. Where are these STEM courses supposed to go? They're supposed to be trained to ensure that they take part in such projects as the government is talking about. When the government is telling us that they want to withdraw funding from courses that they don't think are touching the nerve of the economy of this country and take them to STEM courses, they actually mean it. And we are supposed to support it because it is the right thing to do. Now, the government has two options, and they have been very elaborate about it. The first option is to go the debt route that we have had over the years and keep taking debts to execute these projects. We have the SGR that is a long snake to nowhere, has not been giving us back what we expected, and it was taken on debt. It's shocking already. Then we have the superhighway here, done on a very different strategy. And we can see that everybody who was opposing the superhighway is today enjoying it. Now, what we need to discuss is the modality. And I think Kenyans are very right when they're very cautious about this because of our history. We know we have seen corruption, mega scandals. We had Kibaki corruption with Anglo Leasing. We had Moi and Goldenberg. We had Uhuru and his things. We had, fertilizer things. We've had series of cases of corruptions. Of corruption. And for Kenyans to be this cautious, it is okay because they are demanding accountability. And I think this is what they should demand. They should demand for the president to tell them how he's going to take care of these funds that they want to pick from the people. But also, I have tried to apply my mind to the fact around the question of accountability. And when the president talked about the Hustler Fund, I was very troubled in my mind when now he was elected as president. I thought to myself about how this thing would be executed. Then there was a question of how the youth fund was mismanaged, the women fund, and there are so many funds that have really not seen, the success that they were anticipated to achieve. And I thought to myself, what would the Hustler Fund look like? And I'm very impressed, I must put it on record, that he moved from the usual way of managing our funds into reducing human interaction with the money itself. I have proper information by those who manage this Hustler Fund that it has serious levels of success. And actually, you'll be shocked. And why is this? It is because we have reduced the human interaction with the money involved in the Hustler Fund. Actually, the day you'll hear that there is a scandal on the Hustler Fund, I'll come back here to apologize to you.
All right.
Now, this is what William Ruto should do.
No,
it's true.
Let's leave it to apologize to you. Everybody, 30 seconds last remarks.
No, okay, let me finish my 30 seconds. Eh?
Okay.
Now, I'll be very shocked to hear that there'll be there'll be a scandal in Hustle Fund. Maybe from the source of the money. But where it is being managed, where technology is what reigns, I'll be very shocked. This is what Ruto should do, even in terms of agriculture, even in terms of executing this housing plan and ensuring that we have employment. Just inject technology in all this, and you will delete corruption in the equation. Right. But the pessimist approach that our people are giving the government might only inject negative energy and not the right energy that needs to move Kenya forward.
All right, the president did talk about tech and reducing human interaction during Madaraka Day. Yes, Dennis, last remarks?
Thank you. Somebody said that you cannot treat new diseases with medicine that already exists. My issue here is really, this finance bill has drawn a lot of criticism across the divide. And I think we are presented here with a situation where, you know, it's about the people versus now the government. We are told that the government has never lost and that no comma will be removed from this finance bill. We want to appeal to members of parliament that they were elected, they're supposed to represent the people that elected them. Okay. They were not elected by William Ruto. Right. And what we want to say that the youth of this country are really depressed. And as such, when you heard what Raila Amolo Odinga said yesterday, Mr. William Ruto is supposed to apologize for the depression and anxiety they're causing Kenyans.
All right, 10 seconds, 10 seconds.
For me, Oliver, I want to say this. You cannot appoint people who have integrity issues in office. Then you start telling us that any project we'll undertake will be successful. It will not. Okay.
Hey, good stuff. Advice.
I think the new disease COVID was cured by old medicine Panadol. So I don't think that adage really makes a lot of sense. But then my point would just be that we must be able as a country, opposition or otherwise, to support the government, because at the end of the day, governments exist for all of us. It is not useful to demonize governments and then sit and expect any change. We must be able to really critique, but give the government a benefit of doubt and push it towards delivery, not push it more towards failure. And lastly, I'll just speak to issues around that happened within the parliament yesterday, and what happened was unfortunate. It was not very honorable of the House to treat Honorable Sabina Chege the way they did. Azimio must be able to know that dissenting voices does not necessarily mean disagreement. Okay. As Azimio, we must come to realization that we must take criticism. And that is why you're able now to see what they are doing with the Honorable Pasaris, just because she has a different opinion. Our management as Azimio must be able to become better.
All right, the president did say none of us should wish that the government fail, because Definitely. Then we all pay the price. Huku ndo tunaenda huku. Jackson kuna sauti here Morning Fix. Here is what is coming up on the Morning Fix with David Oyuke and Mariam Bishar. Furahi Day, the weekend is here. My name is Olive Burrows, Ascon Kamili, Advice Mundalo, Joseph Chege, Dennis Manda. Enjoy your weekend.